So let's talk this feels like huge news to me, Richard. So Google finally, after 4 years, has announced a replacement. Yeah, this is a replacement for the Google TV with Chromecast, I believe is what that device.
Chromecast with Google TV. But I can understand why you might mess that up. It's a mouthful.
Oh my gosh, yes. So replacing the most recent Chromecast dongle streamer with a new device. It's new in many ways. It's not a dongle. This is a ovalish shaped box that's like
it's a set front box. They say you're supposed to sit this in front of your television.
Right. That's where my soundbar is, or my center channel speaker.
Right.
That's
this
not
is
where
not
it's going
in front of any television in my home.
It will go on the shelf below the speakers,
maybe
in my entertainment center, but not directly in front of the TV. Okay, so what is it? Because what I have been waiting for is a device that could finally put my 8-year-old NVIDIA Shield TV to bed. It has served its purpose. It deserves to be retired at this point. And I think we might finally have that, Richard.
Maybe.
This thing looks pretty great. So it is more of this box sort of form factor, like we said. It has way more storage, way more memory, and a faster processor, and like a lot more storage. The Chromecast dongle thing had 8 gigs of storage. This has 32 gigs of storage, which is like
much better.
Like if all you're using this for is as a streaming device to load up every single streaming app that you might want, 32 gigs is going to be more than enough.
Yeah, and 8 was not. I mean, right. I had to unload some apps on my existing Chromecast devices to be able to load others. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy. You should never have to do that. It also has more RAM. It has twice the RAM of the original, of the previous Chromecast. It has 4 gigs of RAM. That Chromecast had 2 gigs. You might be wondering, how does that compare to the NVIDIA Shield Pro or that On Pro 4K streamer that I've been using as my daily driver lately? Those both have 3 gigs of memory. So this is even more, which should really prevent you from having a slow and laggy experience when switching between multiple apps and things like that. The processor is also supposed to be faster, but it's kind of a new processor and there aren't really a whole lot of specs out there about it. But considering everything else they've put into this, I'm going to bet that this processor is plenty beefy for whatever it is that you're going to want to do with a device like this.
Yeah.
And then on the back, it's got an HDMI port. It's got gigabit Ethernet, another thing that the Chromecast dongle didn't have. You had to use weird adapters and stuff to get Ethernet. And it uses USB-C for power.
It's interesting they mentioned the HDMI port is future-proof. So that suggests to me that they have some way of upgrading it with firmware?
I don't know. Like the idea of anybody calling an HDMI port future-proof is completely laughable to me. HDMI has had so many different revisions.
Yeah.
It's sure. Okay. If you want to call it future-proof, I guess. Maybe that's just because I really don't know what they're thinking calling it future-proof. They'll come up with something that will make it not future-proof. So one of the cool things about this USB-C port is you can plug a USB-C dock into this, like you would use a USB-C dock with your laptop or with your iPad maybe, where you would then plug your power cord into this dock and then plug other things into your, I almost called it an NVIDIA Shield, but this new Google TV streamer, like big external hard drives or game controllers. So this does seem like it has the power and the capabilities to truly be a replacement to the NVIDIA Shield. Because if you can attach hard drives to it also, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to do run a Plex server, run a channel server, things like that, right off of this device, like we can do with the NVIDIA Shield.
Yeah, and with USB-C, these docks that you're talking about, we're not talking about these like $100 things that you used to have to buy for a laptop. Nowadays, you can get a USB-C dock for like $30 or $40, and it has a whole bunch of USB-C ports on it, and sometimes some memory chip slots and stuff like that. So they're readily available.
Exactly. So all of that sounds great. There are do you want to talk about the remote? Like you really care about a remote, Richard. Let you talk about the remote before I get even nerdier about some of these use cases.
Yeah, so the remote, I think, is a good evolution of the existing Chromecast with Google TV remote, which is I guess I would call it like a half pipe, if you will. The back is completely rounded. The front is cut straight across. And it has, I don't know, maybe like 9 buttons on it. It feels like it's not enough buttons. It always feels like it's not quite enough. So they added a button. They added a programmable button that you can make do a bunch of different things like open apps or switch inputs, stuff like that. They also added some texture to the back, which was much needed because this thing falls off the arm of my sofa all the time. So oftentimes it would be falling on the floor or it would fall on the cushions and I couldn't find it. And they have a good solution for that now too, because they've added a remote finder to the system. So there's a button on the streamer and a little noise maker, like a beeper or something inside the remote itself. So it'll help you find that remote when you do lose it, which, let's face it, is inevitable with something this small.
Yeah, that's a feature that they have on Google TV 4K Pro, whatever thing. And we use it regularly.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Because the remote is tiny and they do get lost really easily. Yep. And that one is not textured, so it does fall off the couch and then, rolls under the couch or the ottoman. So
right. Now, the good thing about that remote, though, is that remote for the on device has a little bit of friction to it. It's not quite rubberized, but it doesn't feel like slick plastic like these remotes that come with the Chromecast are. And I expect this is going to be another like glossy plastic thing. So I'm glad they're adding some texture to the back. That's going to help a lot.
Yeah. So one other thing, and this, I think, is a little bit more interesting, a little bit more of a niche use case. So with the Amazon devices and with the Roku streaming devices, they also have whole ecosystems of speakers that you can pair directly to the streaming boxes and use instead of like a standalone soundbar or, God forbid, the terrible speakers inside of your television. None of the Google-based devices, the Android TV devices, the Google TV devices have ever supported this, despite the fact that Google has their own line of speakers. They're now Nest speakers. They've been called different things in the past. But their TV streaming devices have never supported pairing directly to a Nest speaker to use the Nest speaker as your TV speaker, or like in place of a soundbar. And unfortunately, that's still true. So that sucks. But the good thing is, and this has been a constant frustration of mine since I've been using the NVIDIA Shield TV, is I've got this device hooked up to the best speakers in my house. And it's a Chromecast. And yet, with every previous device, you have not been able to add it to speaker groups inside of the Google Home ecosystem. With this device, you can. So I can finally make a speaker group that's all the downstairs speakers in my house. And that'll be the little Google Hub thing in my kitchen and the giant speakers in my living room, like all of them. I think it's kind of a big deal. Maybe I'm the only one who's been wanting that, but it feels like a big deal to me.
So I'm a little confused about that. You're saying that because your Chromecasting device is connected to good speakers in your living room, that now you'll be able to include those in it. If you have this device, you'd be able to include those in a speaker group with your other Google casting speakers that you have around your home.
Correct.
And it would do that through the streaming box.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have the TV on or anything, right? It's just leveraging the audio. How would that work?
I imagine the TV would still need to be on.
Because it would have to pass through,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because
unless your
in my
TV
case, I'm using
pass
HDMI
through without
eARC.
power. And sometimes that's possible.
That's true. That's true. So maybe it wouldn't. I won't really know until I get my hands on one of these. But I would imagine it would require my TV to be on, which is fine.
Yeah.
Then the other last thing, the thing that brings this in line with one of the cool features about the Apple TV is that this also becomes an actual sort of form of a smart home hub in your house, because it has a Thread radio in it, which supports the new Matter standard, which is essentially using Wi-Fi or this other Thread protocol over a different radio to be a more universal way of doing smart home devices. And we won't get into all of the details there. If you're really curious about that, we've got a whole other show for you to listen to called Home On, where Richard talks about those sorts of things. Maybe he'll even do a special episode for this. But this does work as that sort of hub. In the Matter ecosystem, they would call it a Thread border router. That's what this is, because it has both Thread and Wi-Fi.
I completely missed that.
Yeah.
I need to lose points for that or something.
No kidding. I can't believe you missed this. So the last two, maybe the most important details, when can you get it and how much will it cost you? September 24th, $100. It's by far the most expensive Chromecast we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper than the NVIDIA Shield. It's significantly less expensive than an Apple TV 4K. It's basically the same price as the higher end Amazon and Roku devices. I think the Roku device is actually $110. This feels right to me.
Yeah. No, I think it's the right price. I think so. One thing that we didn't mention here is that this is the new direction for Google as far as Google TV is concerned. Chromecast is done. The Chromecast brand is going away after the devices that are already out in the market or in channels to sell are gone.
So I think we do need to clarify what that actually means, because that's what every article out there says is Chromecast is dead, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it's not dead.
But it doesn't mean that you're no longer going to be able to cast from your phone to your TV.
Yeah. Chromecast as a brand for devices is gone. And the Chromecast concept, where you have these little dongles that you cast to, they're not going to make them anymore. Instead, they're doing these streaming devices now. Now, I think killing Chromecast, because it competed with Google TV, and because, frankly, it was a very different thing than Google TV is today, is a good idea. But at the same time, I do feel like these dongle devices solve a problem that these boxes do not. And that's, what do you take with you on vacation? I have to carry a whole streaming box with me now instead of this tiny little dongle thing that I could plug into any TV without needing a Surface to put it on and everything else. I think that's a mistake to abandon that form factor completely.
So is that what they mean, that they're completely abandoning dongles?
They're not doing dongles anymore.
Huh. I agree with you. Like, it seems like there is still a place for dongles. And maybe it's in the lower spec things, because if you're in a hotel TV or something like that, that TV is going to be trash anyway. So it doesn't matter if you have the best streaming device ever. You just want easy access to your content without having to log into a bunch of different services on some strange, random, foreign device that isn't yours, that you then have to remember to log out of, and all of that craziness.
Yep.
That's unfortunate.
So how excited is your wife going to be that you're going to be buying yet another new streaming box?
So I told her this last night when I saw the news. I'm like, we're going to get a new box for the living room. And she's like, are you serious? I just learned how to use the new one.
Well, the good news is it isn't changing.
Right. I was like, the user interface is going to be basically identical. And even the remote is not very different. It's not very different at all. It has the power button. It has the volume buttons that work. It even has the little star button that you can reprogram, just like we're using with the on Google TV 4K Pro. I'm never going to remember the name of that.
Don't worry about it.
If you thought I couldn't remember Chromecast with Google TV, there's no way I'm ever going to remember the name of that thing.
I have no idea if this is true or not, but it would be interesting if you could use that remote with the new Google TV device. I mean, in theory, I would expect that they would be compatible. Now, there may be reasons why they don't want you using it.
Yeah.
Because it might not have the same branded buttons on it that Google's decided to have on theirs. But still, I think that would be worth trying if your family is really attached to that weird new remote.
It is a little weird, but it's fine. It does the job. And a Sharp Dressed Penguin in the chat is talking about how he's still using a TiVo 4K dongle. And it's interesting to me that he brings that up, because one of the reasons I want to buy this new Google TV device is I want to take that on streamer and move it to my basement, because I've been using the TiVo 4K down there. And the kids just told me, yeah, occasionally we're watching and the screen just goes black for a few seconds. I'm like, well, does the Xbox do that? Nope. The Xbox is fine. Okay, then it's not the TV. It's just the crappy TiVo.
Maybe. I mean, it could also be your HDMI port, but
I bet my HDMI port is future-proof.
Nice. Nicely done there.